hands, dude. That was awesome. That was awesome, and I want to know how to do that. You beat me.
Very well. Your first lesson begins now. Now, depending on what you wish to learn, there are different places where you can pull the information from the body.
Pop, pop.
Find wherever corruption is, root it out, and let the system do its job. If the system isn't doing its job, destroy the system.
Like I can see things.
Look over here.
Yeah?
You look like a nerd.
Oh, that new album from Autumn Orange is just so good. It's just so good. Ba-ba-ba-da-ba, Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Twitter. What did you say right before I closed you? There's a trailer for The Matrix 4?
Do you remember how you got here? You've lost your capacity to discern reality from fiction. What's real is here and now. Anything else is just your mind playing tricks on you. It becomes a problem when fantasies are dangerous.
Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. Hey guys, what's up?
Hi, Dad. What are you doing?
I'm working.
What's that video?
It was a video for a trailer. It was a trailer for a movie that I'm really excited about. What do you guys need? Oh.
Need to give you that.
Okay.
I really want to play a board game.
Okay. Did Mom send you up here to ask me to play a board game? Can you tell her that I'm trying to finish my book, and then as soon as the book's done, then I will play the board game?
How far is the book?
Let me see. I got 2 chapters left.
How long are the chapters?
Like 20 minutes. Love you. Breaks my heart. Okay. I would feel worse about it, except I literally just spent all day with them at their school. Like, all day running around doing all the things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna finish my book now. Speaking of which... Chapter 24, The End of the Beginning. Barrick stood looming over the mystic woman, but his attention had come to rest on the Lifemage standing in the doorway of the orphanage. Within his grasp at last, he had faced her twice already. He knew she stood no chance against him, and yet her eyes. His father's words drifted into his mind. If she masters herself, you will be in grave danger. Dread! Good evening. Barrick shook his head savagely, banishing the thought. Mastering herself, it had taken the Lord years. Whatever paltry scrap of power the Lifemage had uncovered was as nothing in the face of his father's might. Finally, growled Barrick, done sending your whelps to fight for you. Beneath her glowing eyes, the Lifemage's lips twisted in a smirk. A fine boast coming from one who's only here because his father's a coward. White-hot rage filled Barrick. In an instant. Insult him again, and I shall draw a price in blood from those you love, he roared. He pointed to Sylvan. He pointed to Sylvan with the tip of his sword. I have gutted your mystic sow already. Come and join her in the dark below. Yet still he did not step forward. Still he did not launch his attack. The Lifemage looked down at Sylvan. Anguish flickered across her face for a brief moment, but then she returned her gaze to Barrick. I can see it, you know, said the Lifemage. I can sense his presence within you. He's watching right now, isn't he? Or do you even know? My father is always watching over his children, said Barrack, his lip curling. The life mage cocked her head. Is he? Here then, let us see what kind of a man let us see what kind of man you are without him. She did not move, she did not raise a hand or speak a word of power, but something happened. A searing pain burst across the back of Barrack's neck, and his world shattered. For an instant, Barrack's eyes erupted in a white glow. He spasmed, reaching up towards the back of his neck, and then he collapsed on the ground. His body writhed and contorted, twisting on the street in agony. Oris ignored him. She ignored the other shades standing in the street, all of them looking between her and their commander with a mixture of fascination and horror. Instead, she went to Sylvan. The mystic lay in a pool of her own blood, clutching a wound in her belly. Her eyes were anguished as Oris knelt and cupped the back of her head in one hand. You were supposed to leave, croaked Sylvan. They will kill you. They won't, said Oris, and they won't kill you either. I told you you're not allowed to go. I can't lose you. Either one of you. I won't. She placed one hand on the wound. Sylvan's blood bubbled out fresh and warm, covering her fingers. Oris pressed harder, ignoring Sylvan's deep hiss of pain. There came a blinding flash of light. Oris was vaguely aware that the glow in her eyes grew brighter for a moment. She felt a mild flash of surprise as light erupted from Sylvan's eyes as well, quickly hidden as the mystic closed them and gave a long, lingering scream of agony. I'm sorry, muttered Oris. I wish I were better for you. Sylvan's scream subsided at last. Her face was squeezed tight in a grimace of pain, but then suddenly her eyes snapped open. Her expression relaxed and she stared down at her belly. There was the wound. Sylvan lifted a hand and wiped away the blood that soaked her. No fresh blood came to replace it, and Oris knew somehow that the pain was gone, despite the open hole that still gaped in her belly. What did you do? Breathed Sylvan. I remembered what I felt at Wellmont, said Oris, and every time I've seen the Shadeborn since. Well, I'm glad you didn't do that, Dread. I thought it was an emptiness and it frightened me, but it's just me. I still don't know how to fix you. Not really, but I can keep life in you at least. A thought struck her and she looked over her shoulder. There, still tucked in the front corner of the building, was Flip. No glow came from his eyes. He was frozen, staring at her in fascination, as were the shades on the street. Surprise evening stream! Oris smiled at him. Flip gave her a weak smile back. Doing all right, said Oris. Not by half, said Flip. Took you long enough to join us. Got tied up with other things. Flip covered his face with a hand as he groaned. Dark take you. That was bad by your standards. I'm glad you're not dead. I'm glad I'm not dead, too. Metal crashed into stone, and the smile fled Oris's face. Barrack had slammed one gauntlet into the street. Now he levered himself up heavily onto hands and knees. His eyes were still wild and unfocused. One hand rose to probe at the back of his neck. The tattoo was gone. In its place was only a burn mark. A circular scar that looked more like an archery target than anything else. Barrack's fingers probed it, and he winced. His gaze darted to Oris. You, he growled, what did you do? I severed your connection to your father, said Oris simply. I think you've lived too long with that tether. Let's see how you fare without it. Barrack's limbs had stopped shaking. Like a mountain rising, he climbed to his feet. Oris rose to meet him. Breaking the magic had done nothing to reduce his size or his strength, and he still stood a good 2 heads above her. But Oris looked up at him, unflinching. I will crush you, he hissed. I shall smear the pulp of your head across half the streets of this putrid city, and then my father shall grant me his boon again. You have accomplished nothing. Oris shrugged. If you say so, let's match blades and see. Flip called out. When you say match blades, shut it, Flip. Shutting it. Barrack leaped for her, and Oris raised her sword to meet him. The shades in the street surged forwards, coming to help their master, but they drew up short as Sylvan shot to her feet, weapons in her hands once more. Hey, what's up, RT Gamer Gal? Welcome back to the stream. The shades had seen her fell many of their number already, and now they wavered as she warded them from Oris and Barrack. Light blazed in Flip's eyes again, as well as the eyes of the Shade Wizard, but Oris only had a moment to take this in before Barrack was upon her. She parried his first blow, but could not move quickly enough to avoid his shield. It crushed her, slamming into her face, and she fell back with a grunt. She probed her nose with one hand, and it came away bloody. Barrack gave a savage grin, but Oris only grinned right back up at him, blood dripping down into her teeth. Barrack's face fell ever so slightly. Oris brought her sword around for his head. Barrack blocked it easily with his shield, but Oris had put no strength in the blow. As it bounced off, she brought the sword around for another light swing. In light dancing circles, she swung the blade around, half-hearted in strength but with whirling, flashing swiftness. She could see the confusion in Barrack's eyes as he blocked each weak blow. Her other hand whipped her dagger out. While Barrack was blocking another high, light swing, she plunged the dagger into his thigh. Barrack cried out, stepping back. Oris let him. Breath hissed hard between his teeth as he looked down at the dagger, and the blood now seeping out around it. "Honorless tricks won't save you," he snarled. Oris actually laughed, shaking her head. "If you think I care about your views on honor, you're sorely mistaken. The man who murders innocents, who would have murdered the children of this orphanage." Barrack's grimace turned to a smile, and he yanked the dagger from his flesh. Barrack's grimace turned to a smile, and he yanked the dagger from his flesh. He stepped to the side, circling her, but then he stumbled. His smile faltered, and his eyes darted to the wound again. "Something wrong?" said Oris, still smiling. Barrack roared and barreled forwards, but his wounded leg twitched as he stepped on it, throwing off his balance. Oris avoided his blade easily and spun around him, giving him a deep slice on the back of his shield arm. Barrack nearly fell as he took another step on the wounded leg. He turned to her with wild eyes, his hair scraggly as it fell down into his face. "How long has it been?" said Oris. "How long since a wound meant anything to you in a fight? Do you even remember how to push through the pain?" "I remember more than you could ever hope to learn," roared Barrack. "I am my father's favored son, an agent of his just will. Your simpering means nothing to—" Oris feinted towards him. Barrack flinched, hiding behind his shield, but Oris did not press the attack. She only grinned at him as he lowered the shield again. Fear and shame filled his eyes. "Your master has banished all your hurts for a long time, and that has made you weak," said Oris. "I bear the scars of every wound life has ever given me. That is strength." Barrack screamed in hatred and rushed her. Oris laughed. "It's fucking badass." The shade still pushed towards Sylvan. Two of them had tried their luck with her, and their corpses had joined their friends upon the street. Now the rest of them were even more hesitant. Sylvan saw how their glances kept sliding past her to their commander, who battled with Oris in front of the orphanage. "Today is not going to go your way," said Sylvan. "You are about to watch your leader die, and then you are all going to join him." Nervous glances. In their midst, towards the back, Idulin's face was elf-white, his skin covered in a thin sheen of sweat. Sylvan cocked her head. "But," she said, straightening slightly, "it does not have to be that way. I will let you flee if you are wise enough to do so. All of you may leave this place, to crawl back into whatever holes you have slithered from. All but one." They flinched as she raised a blade, but she only used it to point at Idulin's horrified face. "Give me that one, and the rest of you may leave." A long moment of silence stretched. She watched Idulin's face change from certain to uncertain, and then to a different, fatally worse sort of certainty. He tried to turn and flee, but 6 of them seized him before he could manage it. They dragged him screaming through the crowd. One of them, a young, tall man with a bald pate, sneered as he threw Idulin to the ground at Sylvan's feet. "Have him then," said the Shade, "and good riddance." "A wise choice," said Sylvan. "You may flee now." Most of them did, but the bald one only drew back a few paces, as did one other of his companions. They sheathed their blades and stood, never taking their eyes from Idulin. Idulin tried to crawl away from Sylvan. He flipped out a dagger and threw it. It sank through his wrist, and he screamed as he rolled over onto his side, clutching the wound. "A traitor to your liege lord and a coward to the end," growled Sylvan as she stepped forwards. "Even those you betrayed the High King for have no stomach for you. Look, they're staying just for the satisfaction of watching." "Wait," cried Idulin, looking up at her in sheer terror. "Wait, I have information. I can provide counsel on—" "Shunk!" Sylvan plunged one sword into his gut, the other through his chest. She gave each of them a little twist for good measure. "Maybe they shall listen to your pleas in the darkness below," she growled, "but I doubt it." A few paces away, the last 2 shades watched Idulin twitching on her swords. Then they turned and vanished into the streets of Cabras. One shade still remained, the wizard, her eyes glowing as she and Flip held each other off in a duel of wills. Hardly could one of them snap off the beginnings of some spell before the other cut off the source of its power. The glow in their eyes rose brighter and brighter as they each sought an advantage, but the shade was distracted. Her eyes kept going to Barrack, flagging in his duel with Oris, and to Idulin, who lay dying. Flip grinned at her across the street. Things aren't looking good for you, friend. Might be time to turn tail and run. Her eyes darted to him and then back to Barrack. Oh, go on, said Flip. I'm more interested in your master anyway, now he's got no enchantment to protect him. Her lips twisted, her shoulders jerked, and then she turned to flee. Ha, muttered Flip, dark-damned fool. He sent a lightning bolt rocketing after her, but she whirled and swept a hand through the air. The bolt arced into the ground, crashing harmlessly into the street and cracking a cobblestone. Then the shade vanished around the corner of a building. Flip's face fell. Dark take it, he muttered. I truly thought that would work. Ah well, there are other pleasures in life. He turned and fired another lightning bolt into Barrack's back. Barrack already reeled from the many wounds Oris had given him. A wide cut on his cheek left blood dripping from his chin. His arms were crisscrossed with lines of red, and both his legs had been pierced. They shook as he tried to remain upright. When Flip's lightning crashed into him, his body seized up, as Oris's had done inside the orphanage. When at last Flip released the bolt, Barrack went crashing to the ground. Weakly, he pushed himself up on one arm and then climbed to his knees. The point of Oris's sword came to rest at his throat. He froze. Oris smiled down at him. And that is the end of that. Barrack's glare up at her was pure hatred. You have accomplished nothing here, he said. He tried to force strength into his words, but they only cracked. Underelm will fall. All of you will beg for my father's mercy before the end. My death today means nothing. Oris raised her brows and gave him a little smile. Your death? Oh, no, friend. You don't get to die here. They tell me my power isn't death, but life. Now, we'll be taking you back to the seat. And then the mystics and other servants of the High King will take their time with you. Before they're done, we'll learn everything you know about your brethren and their future plans. Barrack's snarl fell away to be replaced by empty uncertainty, but then the grin came back into his expression. He started to laugh. Oris frowned down at him. A few paces away, Sylvan's eyes shot wide with recognition. Oris, she cried, but before Oris could respond, Barrack seized her sword. The blade bit into the flesh of his hand. Oris felt it grinding on bone. She tried to drag the blade away from him, but his grip was too tight. Barrack pulled the sword into his own throat. It sank through the flesh to pierce out the other side. Barrack pulled the sword into his own throat. It sank through the flesh to pierce out the other side. Blood spurted out, splattering across Oris's sword hand and legs. Barrack spit at her and more blood splashed across her tunic. His grip relaxed and Oris yanked the sword away from him. As Barrack's shoulders started to sag, Oris gave him a smile of purest ice. You're a fool, Barrack, she said, and you have learned nothing today. The world around her grew brighter as her eyes started to glow. Barrack's expression became one of fear. Oris stepped forwards and seized his throat hard. Barrack gave a gurgling scream of pain. Then the light in Oris's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Barrack's eyes glowed in tandem with them. The blinding flash died away. Barrack lay on the ground, groaning, his breaths ragged and rasping. Across his body, the skin was still laid open, the flesh and tendon visible beneath, but no fresh blood came pouring forth to join the old. Every wound remained, but they were no longer able to kill him. Oris sniffed. She turned to Flip and Sylvan, standing together a few paces away and looking at her with wide, awestruck eyes. You'd better go summon a constable, said Oris. We've got a lot to clean up. I'm a badass. By I mean Oris in this case, for the record. Oh, shit, my journal. You get to go get my journal. Oops. Alright, I gotta get my journal to mark down. I'm done. I'll be right back. Priorities. Can you pick that up that you just dropped on my floor and throw it away, please?
Is there any trash can in here? Is that our allowance?
It's not, but it has your allowance list in it. And you guys did your chore today, so I better mark that down.
Yeah. We all did our chores. All of us.
Good. Okay, I got it. Okay, chapter 25, first and next steps. The constables arrived before Sylvan had a chance to summon them. Someone in the poppers prefer...
Popper's Torter? What's the Popper's Torter?
One sec.
Fan is always on, so this is always like at a...
Yeah, that's the fan noise, you're right.
Yeah.
Before Sylvan could reach them. The Pauper's Quarter is the quarter of the city where the poor people live.
The quarter of the city?
Mm-hmm. Like the area or section of the city.
Like, like a fourth of the city?
Basically, yeah. But you want to let me read, right? Because you want to go play board games before bed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, love you. Someone in the Pauper's Quarter had at last overcome their fear of the King's Law to notify them, and they were only a few streets away when the fighting stopped at last. All of them drew their blades at the sight of the carnage, but Sylvan drew out her mystic's badge and flashed it at them. Okay, I've got it. There we go. Okay, I nixed this joke because it just didn't strike me as very funny, but I've got an alternative. There we go. That's it. He doesn't say anything. He just snickers. That's way better. It's a dick joke. Desmond, you're still in here. I thought you left. Anyway. The constables arrived before Sylvan could reach them. Someone in the Pauper's Quarter had at last overcome their fear of the King's Law to notify them, and they were only a few streets away when the fighting stopped. All of them drew their blades at the sight of the carnage, but Sylvan drew out her mystic's badge and... Sylvan flashed her mystic's badge at them, and after a moment's conversation, they put their blades away. Beric was bound in chains and dragged off to a cell. Sylvan ensured they would place him under heavy guard. He may still have some trickery in him, she told the constables. Do not remove his chains for an instant. Once he is in the cell, do not let him within arm's reach of you or anyone else, and you had better post a wizard or two on his guard at all times in case he should find a way out of his chains. The constable captain, a man of middle years with a heavy scar on his upper lip, glanced uncertainly at Barrack. If he is one of those Shadeborn the tales tell of, a wizard will be a little help. Oris smiled at Barrack. He is a Shadeborn no longer. Barrack snarled at her, but only a rasping gargle came from his ruined throat. While they were still dealing with the King's Law, Oris sent Flip into the orphanage to inform them the danger had passed. When the constables left, she entered the orphanage herself. The faculty had put the children to bed once more, but Matron Fleda remained awake, as did Hyla. They sat upon cushioned chairs in the front room. Hyla looked bleary-eyed and miserable with the late hour, but Fleda's eyes were still sharp, and they appraised Oris keenly as she stepped through the entryway. "It is done, then?" she said. Oris nodded. "It is." Fleda nodded. Then her gaze dropped to Oris's feet. "You're getting blood on my rug." Oris looked down and saw it was true. She was leaving faint red footprints everywhere she walked, and they had stained the intricate patterns of the rug just inside the door, Adresian in make if she guessed right. "Sorry," said Oris, quickly stepping off the rug, but Fleda waved a hand. She rose and stepped forwards to stand a pace from Oris. Hyla was only a moment behind her, blinking her eyes hard. "It is done," said Fleda. "The rug can be replaced, unlike a life. You saved many lives here tonight, Aresiat. All of them, in fact. Of course, you brought the danger with you as well, but you did not know it when you brought it. We are all grateful. I especially am grateful." Oris swallowed hard. "I couldn't have done anything else, Matron." "Oh, you could have," said Fleda, "but you did not. Accept the gratitude, you silly girl." Briskly, she lifted her hands and clapped them together. "Now, sheer hospitality, to say nothing of a life debt, demands that we get some food in your bellies. Hyla, would you tell the cooks to put something together, the best we can manage on short notice?" Hyla's face fell, but she quickly mastered herself. "Of course, Matron." But beside Oris, Flip gave a thin little groan. Fleda's eyes shot to him. "You object?" said Fleda. "I cannot imagine you were anything other than starving after your ordeal." Oris met Flip's gaze, and when she saw the anguish there, she smiled. "We could eat a horse, each of us," said Oris, "but that isn't Flip's objection. Forgive me for saying so, Matron, but we wish to go and eat somewhere else. Somewhere with ale and wine and brandy and anything else they will pour down our throats. We want to drink until we collapse, and then we want to sleep for a week." Fleda lifted her chin and sniffed disapprovingly, but she said only, "I suppose I understand that, and I suppose you deserve it as well." But then Fleda took another step closer and laid a hand on Oris's arm. Her face softened suddenly, losing its flintiness and looking suddenly somehow older than Oris had ever seen it before, but also warmer and happier and sadder at the same time. "I am sorry that you did not have an easier time here, Aresiat," said Fleda, "and it seems that you are not having it any easier out there. Things can be difficult even between children and parents who love each other very much, and I am not able to be a parent here. But I was always proud that you were one of our children, and I remembered you. That is not always the case, though it sounds terrible to say it. I remembered you and I was proud. I hope you believe that when you leave here, if you did not already." Oris laid her hand on top of Fleda's. "I believe you, and for my part I'm sorry I wasn't the sort of child who would have gotten along better with you. It's not because you were evil any more than it's because I was. I think that now I can be grateful for everything you did, and that's a great deal. I can let the less pleasant memories fall by the wayside, not to be forgotten but to be understood." Fleda arched one eyebrow. "My goodness, so you have found some wisdom out in the wide world after all." "She hasn't," said Flip. "She's only good at faking it." "Flip," shutting it. "I'd ask one thing before we go," said Oris. Fleda gave her a quizzical look. Could I walk through the place one more time? I never really got to give it a proper farewell when I left." "When you ran away, you mean," said Fleda, but not as snippily as she might once have done. She gestured towards the dining hall. "Of course you may. I only ask that you do not enter the dormitories, for I believe they are still trying to wrestle the children into slumber. And I ask that we do not linger too very long, or Hyla will collapse where she stands." Hyla jerked suddenly upright where she had been slouching with drooping eyelids. "Not at all, Matron. I am happy to be of—" "Oh, hush, Hyla." Oris took her time, but not too much of it. Sylvan and Flip excused themselves and waited in the front room, while Fleda and Hyla accompanied Oris on her walk. In the dining hall, she ran her fingers along the tabletops, worn smooth by years and years of use by tiny hands. In the courtyard, she sat on the rim of the fountain she had leaped into countless times over the years. In the courtyard, she sat on the rim of the fountain she had leaped into countless times, ignoring the faculty's outraged cries as she soaked herself and splashed any child within reach. It had once seemed as wide as the little pond, and now she saw that it was only 2 paces across. The courtyard steps, too, were strange. Had they always been so short? Of course they were. She thought they were built for children. She did as Fleda had asked and did not enter the dormitories, but she did walk down the hallway, running her fingers along the rough wood of the 3 doors, and she listened to the hushed whispers of children inside who still dared to defy curfew. She smiled. "What's up, guys?"
I'm
What?
When are we gonna do dinner?
Dinner? We ate dinner.
What?
At the school? You remember?
Oh. Yeah.
If you want food, you can go make yourself something.
When are we gonna do BBC?
After board games, which is after I finish my book. So the longer you talk to me, the longer it's going to take. Des, you can't keep doing that to the door, buddy. Before heading back to the entrance, she looked to Fleda again. Might I go upstairs, she said. If you would permit it, I would like to see the faculty room. Fleda's look was very knowing. She nodded. You are no longer a child, she said. Upstairs is not off limits to you anymore. Oris nodded and climbed up. She still remembered every spot that had once creaked underfoot when she was little, but there were new spots now, and despite her care, she made more noise than she wished. At the top, the long, dark hallway stretched before her, with a thin outline of candlelight rimming the door at the end. There were more doors along the wall to her right. Suddenly she realized that she did not know what lay behind them and had never known it. She almost asked Fleda, then she thought better of it. Instead, she walked down the hall to the faculty room. The door opened easily under her hand. There was the cabinet. Like everything else, it was far smaller than she remembered. The top of it was a few fingers below her chin. She clicked open the latch and swung the wide doors open. There was the shelf where her amulet had once lay, where she reclaimed it in the dead of night. Where she had reclaimed it in the dead of night only to be caught in the act. She turned back to Fleda in the doorway. In a sense, this is where tonight began, she said, or at least it's where the ending began. Fleda frowned. I do not quite follow you. No, said Oris, and you don't need to. She sighed and closed the cabinet doors. There's a question I never thought to ask you, Fleda. Were you an orphan? That clearly surprised the matron. She blinked twice, tilting her head. Beside her, Hyla suddenly perked up, and though she tried to hide it, she looked at Fleda with a sudden keen interest. Few of the children asked me that, said Fleda finally. The answer is both yes and no, but no, not really, not in the way you mean. My parents died when I was in my 24th year. Some would say that gave me the title, but I've been here too long to believe it. In fact, I came here in the first place because their loss made me think what my life would have been like if it had happened 10 years earlier. I wanted to, well, fix it is the wrong thing to say, but when it happened, I was old enough to understand my own grief. I wanted to make things easier for those who were still too young to understand theirs. Tears sprang into Oris's eyes and she wiped them away. My family were alive when I was taken away and brought here, she said. They were alive. I only just learned that. I don't know who they were, or who they might still be, because who knows, and I don't know how to find them. It's why I came here. Fleda's face softened again, as it had done downstairs. Her fingers tightened on her walking stick. Oresiad, she said softly. I did not... Are you sure? Yes, said Oris, and you couldn't have known. It's not... I'm not telling you because... She stopped, sighed, and shook her head. Don't take their things, Fleda. Please. Not their one thing. Let them have that. For just a moment she thought she saw Fleda's chin quiver, and then it was gone, and the matron only nodded. The inn where they had left their possessions had been attacked, and they did not wish to deal with the constables and whatever other representatives of the King's Law might be watching over it. So they found another closer inn, and Sylvan secured them a bed for the night from a wide-eyed innkeeper who gawked at the sight of them, dirty and blood-stained. They went to the inn's baths, and, without disrobing, they scrubbed their skins free of the grime. Then they convened in the common room, claiming a table in the back corner, and tried to ignore the many eyes that stared openly at them. I mean to do as Oris said, and drink until I forget who I am and who you both are, said Flip, waving down a barman. What of you, Sylvan, said Oris. Do you drink tonight? Sylvan smiled at her. Sylvan smiled at her. Oh yes, I drink tonight. You two will watch out for me? Flip put a hand over hers. Always. Whiskey was brought for them, and wine and beer. Drink had never tasted so sweet, nor had food. They did not speak for a while. They only drank and ate, and stared at their hands and at each other. But Flip and Sylvan stole glances at Oris more than anything else. When they had sated themselves and were well into their cups, if not quite silly with drink, Flip spoke at last. What now, O mighty Lifemage? Oris chuckled. Not mighty, just a first step. Yet you found your magic, said Sylvan. That is no small matter. I learned one trick, said Oris. I know little of magic, but I know that Flip can do 1,001 spells. I am no wizard yet, and I shall need to be. This first taste has only made me realize how much more there is for me to learn. But this coming war will not wait forever for me to learn it. You will do it, said Flip. The first step is the hardest. It will get easier, and we will be here to help you and to guard you while you do. Oris gave the barest of nods. Her gaze was far away, and she hardly seemed to be listening. Then she gave another nod, deeper, firm, and it was as if she was nodding to herself. I'm what I am, she said. It's time to act like it. We'll take Beric to the seat, and there we'll join the High King, truly with all our hearts and strength, and we'll fight this war, until it ends or we do. So says the Lifemage, said Sylvan, the words slurred ever so slightly, and I am honor-bound to obey. Oris looked at Sylvan, but she could not quite allow herself to reach over and take her hand as Flip had. Thank you, for finding me and for protecting me, and for allowing me to do what I needed to do even when it was not what you wanted or thought was right. We would have died a long while ago, alone and ignorant in the woods, if not for you. Sylvan dropped her gaze. It is only my duty. Oris's hand twitched. Then it slid across the table, and she laid just the tips of 2 fingers on Sylvan's wrist. Sylvan closed her eyes, taking 2 slow breaths. You walk far beyond the bounds of duty, whispered Oris. You know it, and I know it, and you have my gratitude for it, whether or not you accept it. You walk far beyond the bounds of duty, whispered Oris. You know it, and I know it. Always am I mindful of it, as I know. You walk far beyond the bounds of duty, whispered Oris. You know it, and I know it. Always am I mindful of it, just as you are. Always am I mindful of it, just as you are. Flip's mouth twitched towards a smirk as he glanced at Oris's hand, but he withheld himself. You have my gratitude as well, for what that is worth. It is worth your weight in gold, said Sylvan. It is worth your weight in gold, said Sylvan. I'm not very heavy, I know. But before we retire... these fuckers. But before we retire, I need you both to know something, said Oris. You are never again to try something like what you tried. You are never again to try what you tried to pull tonight. You are not allowed to die for me. You are not allowed to die at all. She held Flip in a long stare, and then she did the same for Sylvan, waiting in a fervid silence until Sylvan at last lifted her eyes. You are mine, both of you, whether you like it or not. No heroic sacrifices, no giving your life for mine. We look out for each other because we need each other. Sylvan's jaw tightened and then relaxed. All right, she said in a small voice. Swear to me. Sylvan and Flip frowned. What? Said Flip. Swear it to me, said Oris, here and now, because I promise you if you ever try anything like that again and you leave me, I will not be long in joining you in the darkness below. Her voice grew thick. You thought you were saving my life, but I could not have survived it. I would have chosen not to. Swear to me you will not do it again. A long silence stretched. Then at last Flip and Sylvan nodded. I swear it, said Sylvan. I swear, said Flip. Good, said Oris. She released them from her gaze at last and nodded. Good. Someone get another bottle. lights are on, but you're not home. Your will is not your own. You're immune to the star. Might as well face it, you're addicted to love. Might as well face it, you're addicted to love. Might as well face it, addicted to love. Thank you to my patrons. Almost. You have the epilogue left, and that's it. And that's very short. Oh, yeah.
How long is that gonna take?
Just a few minutes.
Like 3 minutes?
Not 3 minutes, but
5?
I don't know exactly. Okay. Epilogue. The Lord had watched through Barrick's eyes, and he had seen the sign of Oris's magic. Then he had felt the flash of her power, sensing it through the connection. It had made him wince with pain. When he was able to focus again, the connection was gone, severed. He could not find Barrick at all. He sighed. The attendant appeared beside him. Barrick, he said. The Lord nodded. Yes, he is gone. She has begun to master her power. The attendant shook his head. Father, we must stop her now, at once. We still have troops in the Birchwood. Muster them all, now. Muster them all and march upon Cabris. Wipe her out before she can gain any more power. The Lord slowly shook his head. The Birchwood is being watched. I might indeed be able to kill her, but before our forces could return to the Birchwood or any other point of strength, Selvin's armies would wipe them out. The war would be lost in one stroke. The war will be lost regardless if she comes into her own, said the attendant. The Lord looked up at him. Do you have so little faith in me? I have had many long years to learn my power. You have been here for all of them. I do not doubt your strength, said the attendant, bowing his head. I doubt our numbers. If the mystics in the other kingdoms rally behind her, we cannot withstand them all. We can gather other troops, but who knows if we will ever be granted another opportunity like this one. But to the attendant's shock, the Lord only smiled. It was a calm, gentle smile, the warm glow of fatherly affection, but it held the weight of a mighty king's pronouncement. No, said the Lord, this is no fatal omen. It only means that the coming conflict will be a real fight, a true test, as it should be. The attendant took a long, deep breath. Father, I would rather win than have a fair fight. We owe that to our kindred. We owe it to Underrealm. Nothing is set in stone, my son. Nothing but balance. Half the time, life wins. Half the time, death. The Lord turned back to his desk, bending over it to pore over his map once more. It is our turn. but his words only seemed to fill the attendant's eyes with fear.
What's everybody doing?
They're just hanging out while I finish.
Oh, I'm finished.
You want to go set up to? You want to go set up to play Bang?
Oh God, no.
I was gonna play
Relax.
I was gonna play Valeria.
Oh, we don't have enough time for that, buddy.
Monopoly. Alright, fine.
Put your arms by your side.
Hey, can this activity not happen in the office? I've had them being quiet while I'm in here, which has been going fine. Megan?
Yeah.
Please?
Yep.
Thank you.
We've just been laying here quietly.
They have. It's been wonderful.
I came in like 5 minutes ago. Hi, Dad.
Nope, not right now.
Okay, come on, let's come out of here. When are you gonna be done, Dad?
I don't know, but it's certainly taking longer the more I'm not working on this.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Jesse. You're the only one who knows about my watch.
Your watch? What about your watch?
I think to remember about my watch, I think I should set an alarm for when I wake
Where's
up
your watch?
on my watch.
Okay.
It's on one
Come
of
on,
the arms
you're
of the
supposed
white
to take a
couch.
bath tonight. So why don't you go
Can we
do that?
can we just move out of the office for all this?
It is actually, and you're supposed to go to bed in 40
Okay,
minutes.
all right.
Come on.
Let's just go. Come on.
Come on, guys.
Love you. Do you want to say hi to Stream before you go?
Oh.
Hi to stream. Hi to stream.
Try to stream before I go.
Okay. All right.
Liz, you getting in the tub? Remember, hey, wash your hair. You know which is the wash.
Please close the door.
Right? Which is the cream.
Thanks, buddy. Philp. Steepling. Okay, and Dunzo. What the fuck? Okay. Yeah. All right, you know what? We're just gonna... Okay. We got it. Come on. You're gonna do it. You're gonna do the thing. And it only took us 8 tries. That's fine. We can live with that. Yes. And chapter 3. Okay. We did it, team. And we're done.
Are you done with the thing you were gonna do?
I am. You know what time it is.
Board game time.
You dang right. Gotta get this ready, or gonna email this out to proofreaders tomorrow and start drawing the map. But that means we are done for today. So tomorrow morning we will start with the drawing of the map, which is always fun. No, I can do that actually on here. Oh, my computer is struggling right now. don't think I can raid Critical Bard. Yeah. Critical Bard has raids turned off. Unileska is playing Final Fantasy XIV, so we'll throw a raid at her. Unileska does a bunch of different game streams, and she's pretty cool and all that good stuff. So go say hi, wish her a good night. I'm going to go play some games with my kids before bed. Do all that good family stuff. And yeah.
Ready?
Almost. Just wrapping up right now. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out with me tonight, everybody. Thank you, Desmond, for guesting on the stream tonight.
Thanks.
And I will catch you all tomorrow morning bright and early as we start drawing the map for the book.
Wait, are you playing with her?
No, I'm going to throw the raid over to her so everybody watches her instead of me now that I'm ending off. Bye!
Hold your tongue. When we want your opinion, we'll ask for it. Ha! They're so mean to him.